I think considering what it is you're trying to achieve. I think there are different types of limited edition collabs, drops, limited editions, and so on. They all have different purposes. So it could be that you're trying to draw people to the wider catalog. You're trying to build an audience. Maybe you're trying to build brand awareness, or maybe you already have hype around a particular product like a Switch and you're just trying to make it through launch day. And so you really have to think about what your intent of that process is. Like, what are you trying to deliver? What kind of metrics are you trying to increase through this process? And then work your way upstream. Like, you have to be thinking about reaching people where they are. You have to be thinking about social media. You have to be thinking about how people discover the brand, how people engage with the brand upstream. And then from then, think about capturing as much data as you can before the actual on sale. So, having a wait list, having some idea about where people are coming in, how often people come back, that kind of thing.
You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Welcome back to another episode. With us today is the founder and CEO of Fanfare, Michael Dodsworth. With the founder of Fanfare, they're a platform built to fix the broken experience of high-stakes product launches for both brands and their fans. Michael, so excited to have you on today. How you doing?
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I find myself nodding through my own intro.
Right? You're like, I agree
with all of those points. Absolutely.
Tell us more about your journey. What were you doing before that kind of led you into what you're doing now?
So as you can probably tell from the accent, I'm not from around these parts. I grew up in the northeast of the UK, and this is going to date me for sure, but my brother brought home a Commodore 64 one day, and that was me set. Like, the idea of building something from scratch, from doing things like that, really resonated with me from a very early age, I might add. So went through an engineering course, and through the first company I joined was this company called Coral, which was a startup based in the UK, was scooped up by Salesforce in 2008. So they moved the whole team out to San Francisco, which was a very easy move for me to make. And I think for the rest of the team, spent some years as an engineer at Salesforce. We were growing really quickly. We had some really interesting issues of scale, which came to influence what we're doing now at Fanfare. And then started venturing outside. So I did the small company, the very large company. I went to a medium-sized company, Optimizely, just down the road. Spent some time working on their consumer problems and building up user profiles, things like that. And that's when someone from my past came up to the Bay Area to talk about Rival, which was a ticketing startup. We were just a presentation deck at that point, but we had the ex-CEO of Ticketmaster wanting to take on his old company. So I moved myself down to LA, was the founding engineer at Rival, and then fast forward to the start of the pandemic, we were scooped up by Ticketmaster. So interesting journey there. It's funny how these things come all the way around. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time just dealing with issues of scale, and especially in the last few years, dealing with issues where consumers have a terrible experience of the process. So we can talk a little bit more about how we're addressing that at Fanfare. But at Rival, we built this whole system to try and cater for these huge, most coveted events that you can think of, the SoFi stadiums, the Taylor Swift on sales, and then coming out of this experience and coming out of Ticketmaster, seeing this again and again in retail and seeing brands, creators, artists fail their biggest fans over and over and over. Like, I'm a Nintendo fan. I'm not a Swiftie, but I definitely try to get Oasis tickets, and like the same experience is everywhere. Like, people expect chaos. They expect to be sat at midnight with all of their tabs open, their friends on the line, everyone doing the same thing. And when things go live, it's going to suck. The site's going to fall over. Nothing's going to work. You're going to go through checkout. It's going to fail to register your credit card. Like, there's all kinds of issues with that process. So we built Fanfare to solve those problems and make that experience something that people actually are entertained by or keep coming back, or at least reward people's time and effort in that process.
Wow, that is so cool. And a lot of great background experience that prepared you for everything that you're doing now. And specifically when it comes to that customer experience, I feel like, with the lack of choices or competition out there, it seems like every day is chaos for us, and whether that's from the back end of buying tickets or just the customer service experience as a whole, this is what you're providing now. This is what people want, something new, something different. Successful product launches, and especially for business owners, the scaling issue is tough. Yeah, we built something Absolutely. Nice right now, but how do we get that to the next level? That's such a challenge.
Yeah, and it's a model that I see more and more brands picking up. with Gen Z and social media, like there's more ability to drive hype and FOMO around a particular product or particular product launch. It's a really powerful model. But then, as you say, you get into that problem of I have 1 million people show up on launch day. There is no way I can get my arms around that problem. People are going to be upset. People are going to be disappointed. And even if you're a Nike and you have your sneakers app, like the trust score for the sneakers app right now is at 20%. Like even brands with enormous resources struggle to deal with these kinds of experiences. So that's where we come in and we try and provide like a facilitator for these kind of events.
Is it a lack of money for most of these businesses or business owners, or is it lack to the resources, or just knowledge that, hey, if you put 10 times the traffic onto your website, it can't handle that?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, honestly. Like if you take Ticketmaster, for example, it's a decades-old platform. It was never built with that kind of scale in mind. And these things, they're difficult to try and refactor and change whilst people are still, whilst water is still going through the pipes, right? It's difficult to try and just replace a huge chunk of something like Ticketmaster or Shopify or whatever it is while people are using that platform. And you see that. You see increased traffic causes things to start creak and fall over. Scalability is not something that you can go back and just add after the fact. It has to be woven throughout the product from the very beginning, which is what we've been pushing to do. So yeah, I think that's part of it. I think also just unsure about how to run a campaign or unsure about exactly what kind of hype they're generating. There's definitely a lack of data about demand. And you see that. You see people put Google Forms up on their products page expecting that to be enough when hundreds of thousands of people and bots and bad actors come in through their product page and it just does not work. We've seen some very bad examples. And I think if your site falls over and it's a normal business day, it's a bad time for sure, but it doesn't cause the kind of rage that you get when you fail on launch day. Like those are moments that people immediately head to Twitter or Reddit or wherever they're going, and you will get some negative sentiment coming out of those moments.
It's like the expectations are higher there. They know, hey, you've been planning this, you knew about it. Why weren't you ready for us?
Yeah, and I've heard from people, they feel like maybe the failure was part of the process. Maybe it was a feature of the process, and that's absolutely not true. Having been on the other side of it, there's a firefight happening on the other side of things. Like people are turning off certain payment methods. They're, trying to deal with situations as they come up. And like if you're going for a Switch on launch day and you hit Best Buy and it falls over, you go somewhere else, right? Like you find the first place that's available to take your request and you stay there. Right, that's lost business for sure.
Absolutely. And oftentimes for a lot of consumers and businesses, there's just that one-shot opportunity. This is like a first impression, and that experience that they have, that's going to carry through. And like you said, they're going to hop onto Twitter or social media and really just rip you a new one because they didn't have a great experience, and they're angry. They need to tell the world about it now.
Exactly. Like people are ready, they're waiting. Right, like you mistreat them in that moment, like you're in for some pain for sure. I was watching a Johnny Ive presentation. He was talking about obsessing about the wrapping for their cables in some particular product he was talking about. But like the idea of obsessing not just about the final product, but all the way through that process is something that's really important. Like you build fandom by treating people like as if they're VIPs all the way through the process. And if you fail in that moment, you're not treating people like VIPs. Like they feel gypped in that moment and they don't come back.
Absolutely. I feel like your services would really help Yum brands, specifically their Taco Bell brand. I'm hearing online all the time. Every Tuesday, they have these special promos or like drops where if you sign up and get this code, you can claim for some rewards. But they're always sold out, or the website crashes, or they can't get their order in. And this is a recurring issue week after week. Some people still go back because they have some brand loyalty, but for many businesses they don't get that chance. Is this now a feature, or is Taco Bell like still figuring out week by week? Because you can't just turn on a switch and say our website can take 10 times as much traffic or it fixes this. There's a lot involved. There's pieces like melded together.
Absolutely. And as you increase demand, now you're inviting bots and bad actors into the process. And that was always a challenge at Ticketmaster, pre-Ticketmaster, especially now. It's easier and easier for people to create sophisticated bots that try and work around your process. And now you get that secondary frustration of, I showed up for the Switch 2 on launch day and now it's on eBay for 10x the price. Like, what happened? Like, someone got through. Like, how did these people get through? And the answer is, like, they worked around the system. They worked around the process that you put in place. So you're entering into an arms race when you get successful, and that's also not a thing that brands can get their arms around. Like, that's something that we've spent a significant amount of time addressing previous companies, and it's something that we worked into Fanfare too.
Nice, absolutely. And for a successful product launch, what does that look like for a business starting out from the conception to actually launching it? Are there some commonalities that good product launches should have?
That's a good question. So I think considering what it is you're trying to achieve, I think there are different types of limited edition collabs, drops, limited editions, and so on. They all have different purposes. So it could be that you're trying to draw people to the wider catalog. You're trying to build an audience. Maybe you're trying to build brand awareness, or maybe you already have hype around a particular product like a Switch and you're just trying to make it through launch day. And so you really have to think about what your intent of that process is. Like, what are you trying to deliver? What kind of metrics are you trying to increase through this process? And then work your way upstream. Like, you have to be thinking about reaching people where they are. You have to be thinking about social media. You have to be thinking about how people discover the brand, how people engage with the brand upstream. And then from then, think about capturing as much data as you can before the actual on sale. So, having a wait list, having some idea about where people are coming in, how often people come back, that kind of thing. It's, again, something that we encourage brands to do, is just waitlist from the very beginning so that you can get some estimation of traffic on the actual launch day. And then on the launch day, if you're not using something that's going to scale up, you just have to be prepared for the worst case, honestly. You may get 10x the traffic that you expect. You may get bots that come in and bring your site down and cause some massive frustration. And you just have to be ready to deal with those issues in the moment and then deal with those issues after the fact. And if you're successful, also trying to keep that loop going. We see a lot of brands, they just do these one-offs. Like Black Friday, Cyber Monday is a great example. One-offs, and then come January, you're not expecting to see those people ever come back until the next Black Friday. It's an opportunity to reach out to those people, trying to bring them into a limited edition or limited access on sale for the next thing. One of the things we've seen successful is if people fail a number of times. You turn up for your Travis Scott dunks and you fail 5 times. Most brands just leave you out in the cold, all right? And it's a really important signal. These are potential VIPs. You should try and bring those people back into the brand. So you should try and create something that's exclusive to the L Club, the people who are just unlucky through the process.
I love what you mentioned about making sure you have a wait list, because having that customer data, just knowing, like you said, the demand that you can expect, but the fact that you can communicate directly one-on-one with that audience now who expressed interest in it. And imagine how that can build the relationship and customer engagement beyond that. Now you have suggested products that might be better. You can even
Absolutely.
consider, could you take an everyday average normal product that would normally just be tossed onto the shelf and make it into a fancy product launch and make it into a bigger thing than normally would, it doesn't have to be new. Could that happen with any other product?
Yeah, we've seen brands do that successfully. Mischief is a great example, where they'll have products that, maybe they have 10 of a particular product. And, maybe these are Jesus sandals that they're selling a very limited number of. That can be made into a thing if you craft the campaign correctly.
There's marketing involved. You can use a bit more of just the incentives, just the typical marketing for your everyday products to kind of create a new product launch from it, kind of create demand.
Yeah, you can. And I think you mentioned the recommended products. This is also something that we don't see brands do and that we're building into the platform right now, is the idea that you can go in, you could add polls and things up front. So you see, what product are you interested in seeing next? What kind of colorways are you interested in seeing next? And then if you fail, recommend something to those people in that moment. We know you are interested in seeing these products. Here is some stuff. And it could be a product that you have just sitting around in the warehouse that's just taking up space, but offer a discounted rate for those products, or offer them limited access, an access code to the next drop for that product.
Interesting. Very nice. Now, I'm kind of curious, because I ask all of, business owners, entrepreneurs, how AI is affecting their business. Has it either been helpful or hurtful to you? And where do you see the trend kind of changing?
Incredibly helpful. I'm an engineer. I have an engineer background. So I hear from my friends and colleagues some of the trepidation around AI for sure, but these tools, especially in the last 12 months, are incredible. Like incredibly useful to someone who is switching context frequently, who is like stepping into domains that they don't have a ton of experience in. It just helps bridge that gap. And I feel like right now, there's no problem that I see off in the future where I don't think, it's going to be an incredibly painful process to ramp up. Like I know I have something there that I can reach to try and get me up that hill more quickly than I would have done normally. And like, had I started the business with these tools as they are right now, I would have shortcut so much pain. Just in the basic steps of setting up a company, like you can find available tools and things out there, but you have to be aware of those tools. And you have to be aware of certain like hazards and bumps in the road and all of those things. So it's been incredibly helpful there. On the engineering front, last couple of months have really stepped up. I'm coding right now, actually. I have a Claude code doing some stuff in the background. And that's been the way I've been working for the last couple of months, is just kicking things off in the background, just paying attention to it, and then coming back, which is making the engineering team way more productive than it was.
That's incredible. Yeah, I know businesses are using AI in different realms of their business. First, it was just, okay, it creates some copy. Okay, maybe it does some images. Now it's doing website coding. Now you can create a Python script and have some automations and robots running in the background. Just the stuff is incredible. And it definitely does bridge the gap for those with limited knowledge to just go into kind of, planning, brainstorming, putting all these pieces together. So I'm just kind of, curious to ask how certain businesses are using the AI tools. Now I'm more curious about trends since you first started, and I guess have product launches before the digital age changed quite a bit since then? What are still like the foundation or the principles that are still true for like a successful product launch?
Yeah, I think the principles are largely the same. I think scarcity and FOMO, it's like an innate human trait that we can't turn off. Like that has always been successful in driving product sales. I think what's different now is the ability to create that hype and FOMO around the products. I think you see Emma Chamberlain, like I'm just down the road from a Century City Mall, and there is a Pop Mart and an Emma Chamberlain coffee place right next to each other, always have giant lines outside them, right? The ability to drive traffic to stores and to online stores has vastly increased. So, if you're successful and you build a campaign that can do this, and I encourage people to look around, not just at the Kim Kardashians of the world. You may not necessarily have Kim Kardashian that can sell your products, but there are influencers out there, athletes out there who have giant followings, who have been underutilized, I think. These are great brand ambassadors, people who can drive hype around your products. So I would encourage that model for more and more brands.
Absolutely. I find that a lot of businesses, when they're trying to think of an idea, it's usually the managers and directors that they're getting together in a meeting rather than asking their customers. It's like you literally have this gold mine of information of your ideal customer who actually wants to tell you, this is what I want from your product or service, this is what I expect, this is what I'm hoping in the future. So I hope we can lean more into, like you mentioned, the polls, the customer data-driven insights, because that's your market, who wants your product, and that's who you should be building for and asking those questions to.
Yeah, and I think this ties together with AI too, which is try and differentiate yourself in any way you can. I think with AI, the standard has, the bar has definitely been raised, and the expectation is things are going to be grammatically correct and it's going to look pretty good, right? You differentiate yourself by just having that human touch, that kind of differentiating crackle to your copy or to whatever it is, and that can really separate you from the pack. And the same is true for launches. I don't know if you saw, there was a Dr. Squatch on sale where they were selling soap that was infused by Sydney Sweeney's bathwater.
That's hilarious.
Crazy idea. Yeah, it's like what? Why would you ever do that? But it crashed their site. They sold out in seconds. Those soaps were going for £2,000 on eBay shortly after. You really need to think about ways to separate yourself from that pack, and maybe that's doing something with a little humor, a little bit more of that crackle. Mischief, again, is a great example. If people go and look at what Mischief is doing, I think that's a great example to follow.
Really? It's always interesting with just product launches and marketing in general, because it's like, oftentimes we often think we have to go for the direct sales. We have to make an ad, or we have to directly sell rather than make something funny, something hilarious, something different. Like you said, you have to stand out in the world where ChatGPT and AI can just pump out a bunch of copy and images for you. you need something that's different. And have you found differences between like indirect or direct selling when it comes to the marketing campaigns? Because I feel like just that concept of, it's infused with Sydney Sweeney's bathwater. Like, who would have thought of that? That's crazy. So sometimes it's the out of the box that does really well.
It does. But I think authenticity online, on social, like across all different aspects really, really pays off. So if you have a narrative, if you have a story that you can be authentic with, and that's really going to help you differentiate yourself, right? If people can get behind you and get behind the brand and they understand the narrative of the brand, that's really helpful.
Absolutely. We're going to have a few more questions, but for this moment, we like to ask, where can people find you and connect with you online?
They can find me at fanfare.io. We have a guidebook that we've just published that talks about all the different aspects of this campaign. You can find that at fanfare.io/playbook. If you want to find me, LinkedIn is always a place that I hang out for my sins. So if you want to connect with me and chat with me on LinkedIn.
Very nice. And we'll have those links available down in the show notes and the description for everybody. We have a few more questions. Michael wanted to ask you, if you had to go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
This is very vague. I think it would be go for it. You know, I think I'm no spring chicken. I've been doing this a while, and I think I was probably ready to have done this before I actually ventured into this. And I found myself on these shores by like taking the path least traveled, and that's always been the thing that I kind of gravitate towards. But I would definitely give myself a kick just to get me to step out of comfort zones when I found myself in them.
Absolutely. I think we all need that. And many businesses don't even start, or they fail because of that. They wait a little too long, or they're just hesitant to jump off that board there, and then or they just never try. And I agree. It's like that action piece. We definitely just need to try it. There's some risk involved. It's going to be scary. That comfortability, yeah, we're going to lose that. But I think that's a growth opportunity for us. When we're learning, that's when we, start to grow and expand.
Yeah, and I think when I talk to engineering colleagues and people who are more down in that field, there's definitely some trepidation about AI. But I would say, like, when there's big moments like this, when there's enormous change, there's enormous opportunity. There's huge risks that come along with it, but there's enormous opportunity. And engineers in particular, like, you are using these tools on a daily basis. You are ahead of the curve with these technologies. You can go out and you can try and push yourself to start a company or do something that's maybe something that's a bit of a stretch for you. But I think there's great opportunities in these moments, I think.
Absolutely. We always like to ask our entrepreneurs about your past experiences, leaders, the mentors that have maybe been impactful and helpful in your life. Did you want to give a shout out to anyone who had inspired or mentored you along in your entrepreneurial journey?
I've had a few. I had an incredible manager, Bill Press, who I met at Salesforce, and I think he instilled in me with a great sense of calm. He was such a Zen master who was dealing with, looking back, he was dealing with a lot of pressure, and we had a lot of things that we were working through. And he was just so calm, collected, would work through problems with the team and try and address their actual deep down concerns as we were going through this. I actually worked with him at Optimizely, where we were going through an issue, and people were flaming out. They'd been up since 4 a.m. dealing with issues and so on, and people were fearful of change and they're kind of pushing back on rolling things out. And he sat us down, he listened to our problems, and then he tried to really go deeper and figure out exactly where our concerns were, put a plan together to address those concerns and move forward. And yeah, definitely lessons from my days working with Bill.
Absolutely. Has that helped change the way that you lead and interact with people? I assume you're probably more calm under pressure now. Like, if that person can do it and that's what I learned from it, it just sets you up for success going forward.
Yeah, I think as a leader, people look to you for how to act, how to respond. And if you freak out, if you if you lose your temper and all of those things, you are setting a set of guidelines that people will follow. People will chart a course based on what you do. So I think being calm, collected, understanding where people are coming from. People have concerns that they may voice that you need to go a little deeper on to really understand where it's coming from. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important as a leader to really understand what people's motivations are, what they're really going through, to try and make everything as successful as you can.
Absolutely. What are businesses failing at, or what should they stop doing with their product launches? You keep seeing this all the time, and they need to get rid of this specific thing within their product launches to stop doing.
Maybe
how much time do we have?
I mean, honestly, just crossing your fingers and hoping is never a good strategy for this kind of thing. Like, we see so much bubble gum and sticky tape of all kinds of different solutions to this problem. The Google Forms is one case, but we see people using all kinds of like Airtable or Excel behind the scenes, and they expect that it's going to scale, or they just hope that it's going to scale, and it always ends badly. So I would say know that if you have a product launch coming, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is coming up, like, you may get more traffic than you expect. You may get bad actors and bots coming in that you don't expect. And don't just hope that things are going to scale and things are going to work well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely some great advice. Wanted to ask you, what are you looking forward to most in the rest of 2025? Or in June of 2025 for recording. But do you have any new product launches or exciting services or things that you're going to be switching up or taking on differently for the rest of 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, so we are building more things upstream. I mentioned the social media and announcement aspect. So we're building that into the platform to try and help people structure the entire campaign around this. It's an event you're creating, and it involves marketing, it involves the e-com director, and the coordination of all those people in that moment. So we want to address the whole and deal with that. One of the things I'm really excited at, coming from an events background, we're going to be launching real life product towards the end of the year. So we've all seen the lines around the block and the painful camping out that people do for in real life drops. I think there's some enormous potential with gathering people together, having a communal event around a particular product or a pop-up or something. So TBD, there's more stuff to announce towards the end of the year, but we have something coming up in Paris that hopefully we'll showcase and people will be excited about.
Oh, that is very, very exciting. I hope that can become popular and make its way over here. Just more of that community driven, kind of like get people involved. I think that's something that's missing, and I feel brands and businesses and consumers are missing out on that connection.
Absolutely. I think, going to a live event, you have 60,000 people sometimes, all like, if they could join a communal event, if an athlete could launch a particular product in that stadium just for the people who attend that event, it's a really engaging, compelling experience, and like it helps foster that fandom. So I'm really excited for that launch towards the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I only have time for one more question. I like to ask, is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you have a passion about, want to share with our audience here?
I mean, I definitely have issues with discount codes in particular. We're coming up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and I see like sometimes this is a path that people go down to try and create hype and awareness, is like 50% off through. And for me, like, just so you know, you're training people to always expect those discounts. Like, we've all been to those stores where, like, if there's no discount, I'm not purchasing. Like, I'm going to wait a few months until they have some other offer that's coming up. Like, you break pricing discipline, and then you're training your customers to wait for those discount codes. So I think I would encourage people to try and find a better way that doesn't break with pricing discipline and encourages people to keep coming back without those discount codes.
Right, absolutely. Because once you make that mistake, it could be a quick race to the bottom. You're just setting the wrong expectations here, and you're going to be trying to dig yourself out of that hole, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be a challenge. Now you've conquered that price point with everybody, and I would do the same. I would wait for that code to come through my email. I would be just waiting for it, like, all right, where's that next 50% off? Come on through.
Yeah, there was a furniture place back in the UK where they always had like 90% off sales. And there's no way that was 90% off for one. But like, who's buying this when it's full price? Like, no one's going to turn up unless there's a 90% off sale. It makes no sense.
Exactly. There's a popular retailer here, Kohl's department store, where everybody knows them as just wildly inflating the prices to then knock 50% off. And then they do like a rewards program, like a rebate. You get your Kohl's cash. And yeah, it's a whole thing. But now people have anchored that into their pricing strategy. They just call that the Kohl's pricing strategy now.
Exactly that. Exactly. Like, people know what you're doing.
Yeah.
They know that that's not how much those things cost. Yeah, it's not how you treat your customers.
No, there's definitely a good way, for businesses both to do great, do the right thing, right, and connect with consumers and kind of advocate for them, create that community, as opposed to you need us, we don't need you. Here's your product, get out of here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how it feels sometimes. When you don't get your product in a drop, I think the Oasis ticket debacle was a great example where legitimate fans lost their tickets.
Yes.
Just because the vendor just decided, like, you did something that registered as a bot for us, no tickets for you. Like, maybe you booked a flight, maybe you booked a hotel. Like, that's horrendous.
Man, so many lessons to be learned, and it just gives us insight for, having a more successful launch in the future. Whether you're small, medium, or large business, it's something that you need to consider. For everyone who's listening, make sure you check out Michael's links down the show notes and the description here. Michael, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your tips and tricks and your wisdom with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.